My main memory from that time was of the exhilaration of openness and of a life which was both very engaged in the scholarly way and pleasure of working with Bill Bousma and Jean Brucker, meeting Bob Brentano, and of this political engagement of that time. Those were just very important years in terms of because of context with my colleagues and because of the ambiance here. When I start to say open, it was physically, I always think of this place as physically so much more open because you won't believe it with the weather as it is now, but you know, it was sunny all the time after the rainy season, and we were outside a lot, and everybody was mountain climbing and playing tennis. And
is that the impression that
I had a sense, in contrasted with Toronto and then the Princeton when I went to after being here, of being more outside. I would bike up to the campus, and it was always sunny, and you didn't have to wear heavy clothes most of the time, and
so that
I would
had an
take that
impact.
spatial sense. I would like to talk about in terms of my sense of intellectual discovery. I felt much. It had been so much of a struggle at Toronto to do new things intellectually. And even though I did have some very nice younger colleagues, it was a struggle to do things like The Reasons of Misrule and later The Rights of Violence. Here, if you tried something new, I felt you didn't have to struggle so to get people interested in it. And it was easier to get
people within the department?
Within and without. Within and without. People were just open, more open, even if they weren't literally doing the same things. I felt that Bill and Jean would be more interested in, even if they weren't doing that type of thing, they were interested in it. And then it was very easy. To meet. I remember Stanley Brandis, the anthropologist, was wonderful to talk to, who did European Spanish anthropology. Alan Dundas was a help. Have I got the right name?
Yeah.
And
that's the folklore.
Gave me, and then May Diaz, I read her things in Peasants. And then this group of young people, then I got to know all these other people, other departments, came. First, I'll come back to the Lynn Hunt coming, but and Tom LaCour, but well, I'll just mention that Lynn Hunt and Tom LaCour came, and then Paula, these wonderful young people who I just loved working with. And then you see there were people in the history department like Larry Levine and, oh dear, forget my...
look at that's
Larry
who was
Levine,
here when you came.
Not just Larry Levine, the other wonderful Americanist who works in popular culture. I so like these people.
Leon Litwack?
Leon Litwack. And Reggie.
Reggie Zellner
was doing working class history in Russia. So I just felt very much more at home. There was less of a struggle. I didn't mind the struggle at Toronto, but it was much less of it. It was sort of nice. And then young people came who, and I'll come back to what it was like in the department, because it isn't only that I was welcome.
Right, but let's
I'll come back to that. But I'll just say that then in terms of the intellectual dimension, Stephen Greenblatt came. I got to know English. I got to know Paul Alpers. Svetlana I met at a party, I think either given at Bob Brentano's or at, what's his name, Wright, the art historian, who was a good friend of the Brentanos.
David Wright.
David Wright.
His office is directly above.
And so I met this gang that later became the Representations thing. I left just as they were founding that. And they were very interested in, Steve was particularly interested in my work. He was much younger than I. But it was so much fun to get to know. They were very good friends. So I had this
It sounds like a kind of
wonderful
a creative
group.
cauldron.
Oh, it was so great. And there was a group of us who, toward the end of my stay, we would play tennis together. Paul and Tom LaCour, and Tom was then married to Carla, but whoever Tom was going around with at the time. And were any of the historians in that tennis group? Or Tom? We would play tennis together. We were also a very nice intellectual group as well.
Had you played tennis?
Oh yeah, I played tennis. Always played tennis. I still try to play, but oh God, I don't play very well. My hips. But yeah, I still play tennis. Now, so the intellectual quest for it was very important in the new directions of my work. All the good things that I wrote then, that is, some of them had started before I came, because the anthropology interest already had begun. Maybe it was inspired by my brief time here, but I really had started it in Toronto and then really flowered here. And then my interest in literature, partly through knowing Steve and Paul, but especially Steve, which was,
But you
both of these things fed into my interest in film.
Uh-huh.
And so that even before I left here, I wanted to make that movie on Martin Guerin.